Guys, Escoffier got marketed this week, and everything we knew about her kit from the first beta got confirmed. In my first video, I described her as a broken character, sort of, and arguably the most revolutionary from a meta perspective of this young 2025, especially when thinking of the potential future. In this video, I'll go more in depth to show more of what Escoffier's teams look like from a damage perspective, and also something about her builds in terms of artifacts and weapons. First of all, a bit of a summary for the people that don't know what she's about yet. Escoffier is a support for Cryo and Hydro base teams, and she provides pretty much everything they would ever need. Primarily, she reduces the enemy's resistance to those elements for a value that can go up to 55% if you have a full team of Hydro or Cryo, essentially replacing the presence of characters like Kazuha or Shilonen. Secondarily, she deals a lot of damage, comparable or better than characters that only have that going for them in their kit, like Emily or Chiori. In my first video, I stated this damage was AoE because of the wording that implied her skill could target multiple nearby opponents, but it seems that her skill will only hit one opponent at a time throughout its duration of 20 seconds. Thirdly, through her elemental burst, she can heal the whole team by a substantial amount, and then heal the active character every second for 9 seconds in total. This makes her very reliable as a sustain option for the team, and also a perfect partner for Furina, considering that the latter also fits the element requirement. So, she's a character that does a lot of things very well, but her passive kind of restricts her to a single team archetype, that being Freeze. For this reason, I've heard some people say that she's kinda balanced, because Freeze has been dead in a ditch for a while after all, and they needed this kind of release to be good again. While this is partially true, I will still argue she's over the top by Genshin standards because of how much better she looks like than characters that are similarly dependent on a specific niche. For example, Emily was pretty much worthless if the team can't reliably generate burning on opponents, only deals comparable damage to Escoffier in her best conditions without having any of the utility. Chiori loses almost half of her damage if not played alongside a construct user, and again, even in her best scenario, she offers much less than Escoffier overall. Compared to them, in terms of restrictions, even if Escoffier's resistance reduction effects become smaller the fewer Hydro or Cryo allies she has on a team, her damage abilities or healing don't change in the same way. So on top of having a much more well-rounded kit than other similar characters, she also suffers less by not being in her niche. And this niche also seems less limiting to me in a way because of how strong she makes it. Like, back when Emily came out, even though she worked with Pyro characters through burning, it was arguable whether or not she was the best option for them. For example, for Mono-Pyro teams, she was more of an amazing alternative to Shelling instead of being a direct considerable upgrade. Meanwhile, Escoffier is nothing short of astounding so far from a theoretical standpoint. She's basically Freeze Jesus because she's straight up bringing this concept back to life. Compared to last week, I adjusted some calculations. For example, for the Ayaka team, I used more realistic rotation timings, optimized builds more, and also accounted for more scenarios. Specifically, the team loses a bit of damage if you're facing opponents that can't be frozen, as the Blizzard Strayer set loses effectiveness in those situations, but regardless of the scenario, the Escoffier's variant stays incredibly impressive damage-wise. To the point that I frankly can't remember such a big leap caused by a single release in the history of the game. Now, of course, this is all still theoretical, and Ayaka does have precedence with her numbers feeling a bit misleading if you're not hitting everything with her burst, something that becomes increasingly hard if you don't have a grouper on your team. However, something to note here is that the new Ayaka team now has around 1 million damage coming from supports at low investment, and realistically this will raise her floor significantly in terms of performance. It's not only her that benefits, of course. Pretty much every Freeze comp went from meh to great. It's less noticeable on a character like Ganyu, whose Freeze numbers have always been kinda low compared to her Melt team ones, but a relative increase in a team-wide sense stayed high across the board. Freezely, just like Ganyu, always preferred Melt teams to Freeze teams, but what makes his teams shine here is that the double Hydro core of Yelan and Furina is an incredible fit for Escoffier teams. Yelan, Escoffier and Furina together can deal the sort of damage only modern hyper carries can compare to, and so it does look like things could flip for him in terms of what archetype is best. Funnily enough, if you replace Freezely for a Rosaria with a supportive build and Favonius, and play Yelan on field instead, the numbers stay pretty similar. similar, and really this just confirms that this trio can work flawlessly as the major bulk of damage of your team. And so what's happening here is that Escoffier is basically picking up this old struggling playstyle and making it very relevant again, and this is with frankly old and outdated carries, so it's very easy to imagine that when a new modern cryo carry comes out, they could be the new damage ceiling of the meta. She's also so impactful that for some characters, accommodating her playstyle can be more beneficial than sticking to their identity. For example, for Novelette, a full cryo hydro team with Citlali shits better than the Kazuha variant with Escoffier on the team, even though in the first case he has one less draconic stack for his charge attacks. This is partially because Novelette himself doesn't lose as much damage going from 2 stacks to 1 as going from 3 to 2, and also because Citlali allows for tighter rotations compared to Kazuha, but it's still funny to see nonetheless. There is still much more to analyze, but for now this is all I've done myself. Now that I've established how strong this girl is in my opinion, let's talk about her builds a bit. But first, let me remind you that if you enjoy my content but you haven't subbed yet, please consider doing so because it really makes me notice your support. The trickiest part here is how much energy recharge she needs. Escoffier needs her burst to heal the team, so it's expected that she will need to burst every rotation, especially if paired with Furina. In this sense, her particle generation is not the best, as her skill will create only 4 cryo particles a rotation. Luckily, her team constitution helps her significantly, as she will more than likely have at least one cryo teammate that helps her with particle generation. Still, her energy requirements fluctuate a lot depending on the exact composition. They can go from very low in triple cryo situations to average in double cryo situations to very high in solo cryo scenarios. For the rest, she's an attack scaling character, so just focus on that, damage bonus, and crit to amplify her damage. Side note about her healing, it scales on attack, so technically you can maximize on it main stats wise if you want to make her more defensive. Honestly though, she heals plenty even if you don't do that, so sacrificing some of her damage to increase her healing further doesn't seem worth to me. Artifacts wise, most of her damage comes from her elemental skill, so Golden Troop fits really well here. Blizzard's Slayer is really strong if you're facing opponents that can be frozen, and even when they're not frozen, it stays really competitive, although it becomes a bit hard to use if you have a crit rate weapon like Deathmatch. So Blizzard's Slayer is a high-hand, slightly situational choice, and Golden Troop is a more consistently good one. Weapons-wise, her signature is really strong, as it increases her damage plenty, while also increasing the attack of allies that get healed by her for 3 seconds every time. Since it has a low duration, this will mostly only count for the active character, as only her single target healing lasts for an extended time. So, on top of being the best option for her damage, it's also a really good supportive weapon that will benefit the majority of her teams, as cryo carries typically tend to be attack scaling. Surprisingly though, Calamity Queller, Shenhe's signature, is pretty close to it when it comes to her damage specifically. Its high attack values make it a poor fate to many characters usually, since it's a stat that can easily saturate if you have attack buffs on your team, but Escoffier is close to none pretty much always. For the rest, the difference between her signature and her 4-star options is on the high end, although she has a couple nice free-to-play ones like Ono Anashi and Mountain Bracing Bolt. And with this, I'm done for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, and bye bye.